When we think about speaking to kids about illness in general, we want to consider three main things. One is their age, one is their current understanding of the situation, and one is their coping style. And this will help us understand or plan for how much information we share and what kind of information we'll share. We want to have open communication, but we want it to be appropriate, for what that child can take in. We don't want our communication to increase their levels of stress. We want to focus on what is known. We want to empower kids with what they can do, what they already know. Discuss hand hygiene, make that fun in any way, and let them know that we're still learning, and model positive behavior. And when I say that, this is a chance for us to really check in on ourselves and our own anxiety level. We want to keep our own anxiety level under control because it can feed our child's anxiety. Check in with our own breathing before we speak to the child or our children. Check in on our breathing. Is it shallow? Is it rapid? Are you holding your breath? And go ahead and exhale all the way before you start the conversation. Or if you just feel yourself becoming anxious when you're talking about it. Come from a position of strength so that you can support your child's coping skills. So that brings us to coping skills, coping styles. There are four main coping styles. One is the catastrophizer. And the catastrophizer is the person who, this is what they think. This is a total disaster and it will never work out. And this is their go-to. So whether there's a pandemic or they missed the bus for school or forgot to do their homework, it's a total disaster and nothing will ever work out. They'll think about escaping the situation or avoiding it. So when you're providing information, too much information, too much detail will really increase this person's anxiety level. And this is not only true of children. You might see this in yourself or with other people that you're interacting with during this crisis. It's really important to do a lot of self-care, and for a catastrophizer as a parent, really acknowledging up front that you know that your child gets, I know you worry about these things. I know that you get worried easily. And that's one of your ways of coping, just kind of calling it out. And then asking them in a very low-key and calm manner to consider how probable their worry is. How probable is it? In this case, even if you're feeling worried, it's important to let your child know that you are not feeling worried. Reassure this child, reassure the child that they have support and that you're in this together. And in that way, be as honest. We always say in the child life field, you share information in the softest way that is honest. So honest, but soft. So think of the words that you're using and how much, what the energetic impact of those words might be. Soften the words. You can still be honest. You can say you're concerned. I'm concerned just like you are, but I know we're going to get through this and we have everything we need to keep ourselves safe, or whatever it may be. This again would be personal, and this is where if you want to discuss a particular situation, please do reach out. So we go from catastrophizer to a sensitizer. And the sensitizer is the person who copes really well the more they know about it. So in this case, they may be asking for the same amount of information as the catastrophizer, but their anxiety levels goes down with information. The more they know, the better they manage. They like books, they like charts, videos, positive survival stories. These are really important coping strategies to help this child or partner or self. Talking about strategies and maybe brainstorming with this child about, what do you think the hardest thing about staying home for this amount of time will be? Or what do you think the hardest part about whatever they've identified as the hardest part? Don't assume that you actually know what the hardest part is if they haven't said. I've found that kids worry about different things than adults worry about. And so what is the hardest part for you? Okay, and then talk about strategies from there and involving them in that process. Then there's the minimizer, and the minimizer might think, just give me the highlights. I don't need to know all the details because when I have all that all at once, I get stressed. They want information in small chunks, not all at once. So we want to protect the catastrophizer and the minimizer a little bit with information. This is where we don't want to pour it all out. And if we're a sensitizer and we like to have information, that actually makes us feel better. We have to catch ourselves because we may want to share that with the people in our lives, and they may not share the same coping style. It's also important to remember that coping is a learned skill that varies from one situation to another. So though a child may cope really well with school-related stress, health-related stress might be totally different. Or lack of freedom, if they're a teenager, might trigger some other kinds of anxiety that you haven't seen before. So don't be surprised by that. It's totally normal. Encouragement and active guidance will help children learn. So we have to be the models here. So we've talked about catastrophizers, sensitizers, and now minimizers. And remember, that's just one or two items of info at once. And then they also like to control when that information comes in. So that's when you might give them some written information, leave it on the table, or just say, here's some information about that. Read it when you're ready. Or in our day and age, it might be an article that you find online, or a video that you happen to find, but you might want to sift through that and see what would be appropriate and then suggest it, put it on a playlist and let them explore it when they're ready. And then make sure that you let them know that you're available for questions and if you want to talk about it. And that's where you can say, come talk to me about it when you're ready or a little later. Also notice, just really watch body language here and notice that if your child becomes uncomfortable, stop. Just stop, let it rest. And give them that open door to come back to you. Okay, that's the minimizer. And then finally, the denier. That's the person who is like, don't remind me. I don't want to think about that, or I don't want to talk about it. Or they might just show you that they don't want to talk about it by leaving the room or changing the subject or turning away from you. There are lots. This you'll see more in body language. It is actually more common in adults than in children. But I have noticed, I see this kind of behavior come out more. It's more linked with a developmental stage of like from about 8 to 11 or 9 to 12, right around there. It's normal anyway for kids to tend to not want to talk about things directly. So with this can be a little more challenging for parents. You want to be able to give key pieces orally, give the information, for instance, around hygiene. They need that information. So they don't want to talk about it. They might not need to know, they don't want to know why, but just make sure they have the information about what they need to do and make it very simple and clear. This is what you need to do. This is how you need to do it. I don't need to explain why if you don't want that information, but you do need to do this. Hand washing, for instance, or wearing a mask if that's what you're doing. You can give them written information as well and leave it for them to revisit. Tell them very matter-of-factly. The other little technique to get the information to them is to talk about it to someone else in front of them. So talking about it on the phone or to your partner or to another child in the house, explaining in a way that's really manageable so that they're hearing it and it's not raising their anxiety level. Okay. I know I don't have a lot more time, but those are the four. So catastrophizer, sensitizer, minimizer, and denier. You might recognize yourself in this circumstance as having one style or another, and you may think about that for the people in your life and in your family. I did want to just make sure that, we're talking about age and stage, and that's, what you share based on their understanding of illness is important as well. I should be posting some more information about that over on my website or on my Facebook page as well. But I will give you this question that's a really important question to ask your kids. And that is when I talked about their three things that you need to consider before talking to them: their coping style, which we covered, and then their age and their understanding, their current understanding. So the best way to start this conversation is, can you tell me what you already know about COVID-19 or the pandemic, or use their language, whatever age they are, the sickness, tell me what you already know. What have you heard? Because kids are picking things up on the media, at school, family, other families, family members. So you want to know what they already know so that then you can listen for misconceptions or misunderstandings. That's really important. And then clarify for your child's understanding. So what can you tell me about what you know, or what do you already know? And clarify. And then if they're using words like pandemic or COVID-19 or corona or whatever, flu, ask them what that means, because many times, especially even young children, like school-age children from 6 to 11 or so, or 12, they can pick up vocabulary really easily, and they know that it's what it's related to, but they don't have a full understanding of what it means. So what does that mean? What does pandemic mean? And they may also have some confusion about the words being used. They may have a different interpretation based on their developmental level. So checking in for understanding. So check for understanding. That's the other big piece of information or of guidance I can provide. And let the child lead the conversation. It does take a lot of observation, and sometimes, especially for some kids, like from under the age of 8, you can see they may not talk about it, but it may come up in their play and in their drawing and their art. So really look there if it seems like they're avoidant and they don't really want the information. That's another way, or another place where you can look for information. So I'll stop there. There is a lot more to talk about on this subject. So like I said, please feel free to reach out to me. I hope this has been helpful, and I'm wishing you all the best.